Welcome back, everyone. Well, Joe Biden is getting ready to speak and make let's see, hold, supposedly an unscripted conference. It's been delayed from 5:30 Eastern to 6:30 Eastern. That is technically in about 8 minutes. Usually they're late anyway, but we'll be covering it. We are watching multiple sources to, indicate when Biden will be ready to speak. So we'll be watching. We'll flip between the channels. We'll add commentary as usual. So first thing that we want to pay attention to is if you haven't yet seen the oopsie-doopsie blunder-dunder of what Joe Biden just said in terms of how he introduced President Zelensky, it's bad. Let's just leave it there. So we'll take a peek at this. It's the challenge here is really at what point is enough? And look, people make mistakes, but it's very bad when everybody's on the microscope watching you to make mistakes like this. It's just not good. Watch this.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. And now...
Okay, yeah, so he caught his mistake. We get it. Like, it can happen. You know, you're talking about Russia. You're talking about Ukraine. I get it. It's just bad. At a time when people are already questioning your ability to do anything. It's very bad. You literally just introduced the leader of the country that you're now sending another $225 million of weapons to as the leader of the enemy. This is the kind of stuff that just continuously amplifies the concern that Biden is not capable of leading this country and that we're being lied to about his conditions. We'll see. Anyway, Biden supposedly is going to conduct an unscripted interview today. It says right here, interview. It's more of a press conference. It says here the official schedule is that at 6:30 p.m., which got delayed by 30 minutes, 6:30 p.m., we have President holds a press conference. And this is at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in Washington. So we'll see. We'll be covering this live, and we'll see it happen. Supposedly, it is just minutes away, but they're always late on this, so we'll be covering it, of course, and we'll get to see it. Again, just moments away from that. We are waiting for Biden to show up. We're about 5 minutes away from that, so we'll be covering that as it comes. Let's take a look at the predicted polling odds while we wait. So right now it looks like J.D. Vance, by the way, is moving up in the polling odds. This has actually been sort of my choice for Trump, like my guess for Trump. If he was going to pick a VP, whom it would be. I don't think you could go with somebody who has an extremely strong personality. J.D. Vance, relatively clean in terms of, record or negatives, appeals to a certain group that maybe find Donald Trump a little too loud or obnoxious. So I think it's a good balanced ticket. And so far, so does the market. So we'll see. As far as what you have with Biden, right now Kamala is leading him now by 21 cents. This about, 6 hours ago this morning when we provided an update, we had Kamala in the lead by about 10 cents. And that was partly because the New York Times put out that Joe Biden is basically the Biden camp is looking into polling options for how Harris would poll against Donald Trump, basically. Now, I do go to the front page of the New York Times right now, which has a pretty good in when it comes to what's going on with Democrats. You've got some Biden advisors are discussing how to persuade Biden to step aside. So, again, we're waiting for this presser to begin. It hasn't begun yet. Let me listen here for a moment.
Players joining us live here at the desk. Fox News contributor and SiriusXM Patriot radio host David Webb.
No, it's just basically you're going to get a bunch of commentary between now and when the Biden presser begins here. But anyway, take a look at this Times piece here. Some Biden advisors are discussing how to convince Joe Biden to step aside. Close allies of the president are developing a case for why he should end his re-election campaign, though it is not clear that the discussions have reached Joe Biden. So what do we have here? Some longtime aides and advisors to Biden have become increasingly convinced that he will have to step aside from the campaign, and in recent days they have been trying to come up with ways to persuade him that he should, according to people briefed with this matter. So it's becoming more and more aggressive here, the pressure for Joe Biden to step down. Somebody here says the presser might be delayed now by 30 minutes. Let me see if the White House website has been updated. Wouldn't surprise me. They're usually at least 15 minutes late anyway. The schedule here has not been updated yet, but we'll keep an eye on it. One thing that I saw is I actually saw David Sachs on X suggesting that it would be un-American, or like it's un-American for Democrats to try to suggest that Biden should step down. I partly think he's doing that because, I mean, he held a Donald Trump fundraiser at his home, and I think that Trump is probably like, hey, you should be, like, trying to keep Biden in the race. Like, there's something going on there with David Sachs. Usually I really respect his opinion, but he was really, really aggressive in saying it's un-American for Democrats to say that Joe Biden should step down. And I'm thinking to myself, no, it's not. A lot of people have been lied to about his mental fitness, and it's time for people to wake up to that and make a change. Here, I think I found it right here. Yeah, I bookmarked it. So it was this right here. President Biden is being treated like a piece of trash by Democrat elites who are only out for themselves. I don't agree with this at all. Like, I think President Biden is getting a very clear dose of reality that nobody around him apparently is wanting to be honest with him about. He's not fit to lead this country. That's not treating Biden like trash. That's trying to prevent elder abuse. Keeping this person in the office of the presidency at this point is just elder abuse. David Sachs says they have no respect for the office, no loyalty to their friends, no honor of any kind. It's disgusting to watch. This sounds like something, honestly, Trump would write. This sounds very Trumpian. And so I was actually a little disappointed in David Sachs for trying to take this extremely aggressive attitude when the reality is, like, what's best for the country is that there is not a chance Biden is here for another 4 years. I'm not trying to say it needs to be Democrats, it needs to be Republicans. Just think it's not good that Biden is even there right now. He should frankly step down right now. And I actually think he will, because it's usually easier to elect an incumbent than it is like putting Kamala Harris in fresh. So I think it'd be easier for him to just step down. You get the first female president ever, and then boom, it turns into an incumbent versus a former president, which is also going to be quite interesting. But anyway, so I thought this was a poorly played by David. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this. No. This whole idea that, oh, he won the primary, this is ludicrous. Okay, he won the primary unchallenged under the premise that his mental fitness and his ability to actually lead is still intact. Okay, that's why he won the primary. If people said, hey, you want Biden to win the primary, he's senile, demented, and incapable of remembering anything, the answer would be no, of course not. But that only became evident in the debate because obviously the American public was lied to. But now it's obvious. Now it's the duty of people to make sure that he doesn't serve. So this whole idea that, oh, but they can't change the delegates, that's bullcrap. That's honestly, those are like Republican talking points to keep Biden in the race. Because in fairness, if Biden stays in the race, Donald Trump is absolutely going to trounce him. It will be a slaughtering. Jackie's out here donated $5 to say, Joe Biden is the rightful nominee of the Democratic Party. I endorse him to stay. Fight, Joe, fight. This is stupid. Like, I'm going to take your $5, and now I'm going to say that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. I'll just be, like, super frank while we wait for this here. I don't give a shit if he's the party nominee. If he's incapable of leading this country, I am fearful for the lives of every American. No. Take your $5 back. That's a terrible thing to say. If a president is not fit to lead, they must be removed from office. You know, we have constitutional amendments for this as well. Like, you could literally win the election and get removed from office because you're not fit to lead. We have systems for that. And I think we're getting closer and closer to some of those systems actually being utilized. Anyway, we're waiting for this press conference to begin. As we wait for this press conference to begin, I'm going to drink about $5 worth of coffee here, thank you. And let's see what else there is here. A small group of Biden advisors in the administration and campaign, at least 2 of them who have told allies they do not believe he should continue to try to run for a second term, have said they would have to convince the president of several things. They said they have to make the case to the president, who remains convinced in the strength of his campaign, that he cannot win against Trump. That's why they're running the polling. That's why they're running the polling. Interesting. So they're running the internal polling to see if Kamala will do better than Biden so they could give Biden the data. Wow. Interesting. Okay, I get it. That's the strategy. That's what they're doing. They have to persuade him to believe that another candidate like Harris could beat Trump, and they have to assure Biden that he should step aside. The process to choose another candidate would be orderly and not devolve into chaos in the Democratic Party. Right. Those discussions were recounted by 3 people familiar with them, who, like others in the article, spoke on a condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive situation. There's no indication that any of the discussions have reached Biden himself, one of the people mentioned. Right, this is why Biden is saying, I'm staying in the race. Well, yeah, of course, because the second you say you're not, your funding dries up, and it's already dried up substantially. We know that. In the meantime, the backup plan is being worked on. So that's going to now include polling to see if we can, America can basically provide some proof to Joe Biden that this was an oopsie-doopsie. And he's got to step down. I just got another $5 from Barb. What's up, Barb Atkinson? I agree that this is horrible. Biden needs to be home with his family, not running another 4 years. Yeah, I agree. I'm not here to bag on Biden. Every president makes mistakes. I'm not here to say he's a bad man. A lot of people think, it's Biden crime family and stuff. I'm not saying that. Everybody can have their own opinion about that kind of stuff. But let the old man go home. It's time. But anyway, let's keep going with this while we wait for the Biden presser. The Biden presser does appear to be delayed at this point. It was expected that it would be at least 15 minutes late because it's always 15 minutes late. So we'll see. Did all those who voted for him know that he had this impairment, not able to lead the country? I don't think so, and he actually performed pretty well in the in the prior debate, right? He was professional. Donald Trump came across as a little aggressive, maybe a lot aggressive. Thank you, Dylan, for the $5 as well. Julia Monelina says, you're a joke, Kevin. Well, first of all, the real joke's on you because you spelled "you're" wrong, but we'll let that one slide. The second thing that's a joke is you didn't even capitalize your name. The third thing that's a joke is at least give me a reason why, because when you say this, it just kind of makes you look like a dummy. You got to say something like, Kevin, you're a joke because I want to punch your face because you're ugly. At least then I could say, yeah, you're probably right. But when you leave me hanging like this, I don't have anything to respond to. So it's a mess. It's a mess. You're going to have to work on that one. So anyway, where were we here? So the White House denied the account unequivocally. This is not true. Well, of course they did, the White House spokespeople, of course. And again, remember, we're just a little delayed here on the official schedule. Technically, we should already be live with the Joe Biden event, but it's not yet. So we'll keep looking over here. So you are a Republican, Jackie. Jackie just donated another $5 to clarify that Democrats reaped what they sow. Kamala is Biden insurance. Yeah. So, okay, this I can actually agree with. You're right. The Democratic Party has a problem of not allowing true competition. They pick someone and then they want to have a purely unified front to beat their competitor. As a result, you don't actually get a fair process to finding a candidate. The Republican Party has had much more choice. And through it, Donald Trump has obviously, climbed his way to the top. He's basically become the party leader, right? The de facto leader of the party. But that came from an outsider. I don't know that that's possible in the Democratic Party. So I have to give respect to the Republican Party for that, because I do like to see that outsiders can actually get in and then lead the party, because parties should be Americans, should be made up of Americans who are elected by the people, not chosen by the party. Yeah, my take. Keep Biden in the race. We need Trump to win, says $2 donation here. Lumpy's Gaming. What do you game? That's so lumpy. $9.99. If Biden's gone, what do you think about Ukraine? There is not going to be support. I believe not. If that, there's a way to say. I mean, I appreciate the $9 here. Still waiting for Biden to show up here. Well, I mean, if Biden's gone, Kamala's just going to keep the aid flowing to Ukraine. If Trump wins, I think there'll be a substantially greater amount of pressure to actually end the war. It's a campaign promise of Trump's. That's not to say he's going to keep his promise, but I think there'll be a lot more pressure. Donald Trump is much more aggressive when it comes to NATO and ending these conflicts, whereas the Democratic initiative is weaken Russia. We're basically fighting a proxy war against Russia, right? So, yeah. Dylan, thank you for the $1. You smelly farts. I mean, that is true. Especially after eating grapes. I mean, yeah. Yeah, it's the poverty chats running wild, right? I know. That coffee should be whiskey. Did I say coffee? Okay. Now I feel like y'all are just saying delay. Can you imagine one Kamala laughing her way through the State of the Union? Personally, anybody but Joe. I mean, maybe not anybody, but Joe's just not capable. Like, I'd rather have somebody who can remember that, maybe I don't like their cackle or whatever, or, I don't like their policies or whatever. But when the memory goes, that's like, they don't even know how dangerous they are. That's the problem. Lionheart Virals. Thanks for the $4.99. Dylan comes back. Did Biden really introduce Zelensky as Putin? Yeah, we just actually played that at the beginning of this video. I'll play it again if you haven't seen it yet. It's only 14 seconds long. I'm not doing this to bag on Biden. I'm constantly doing this because he should not be president.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. And now I want to hand it over to...
Yeah. Admit it, Kevin. You're backwalking words. What words? Which words? I'll fight you. No, just tell me what words and we can talk about it. Now you're going to have to donate more money because, I mean, you had more text in there. You could have written more, but you chose not to. So you chose to imply that I'm lying without providing clarity on it. And now you have to pay more money. All right. I would vote for Kevin. Oh, thanks, Jackie. Thanks for, I mean, you're at $12 now. I like you now. Thank you. Your second comment makes sense. I respect that. It was good. And the third one's good, too. All right. So we're waiting for, what is this? A Joe Barack bracelet? It's going through his memory basket. While Obama did not encourage or advise Clooney to say what he did, he also didn't object to it. Oh, wow. Clooney reached out to Obama? Wow. I hope he stays in because Trump will win. Well, you and a lot of people. You and a lot of people. David Sachs just wants Trump to win. Absolutely. 100%. Remember, he had a campaign fundraiser at his house. There's nothing better than fruit. Somebody says grapes. Fruit is amazing. Somebody here donated $1.99 to say F Joe Biden. So who do you want to be sitting in office? Not Joe. Biden had an aneurysm brain surgery during 2020 election. I didn't know that. I also still don't know if that's true. Somebody here says Puesto Exotics. Cataray says we need to funnel money back to America. Puesto Exotics. All right. Max says never a dull day in America. Max is a Canadian. See how he just donated $1 to me? Now, I know you might be confused because it says $6.99 on there. But when you convert it over, it works out to like a loonie. Okay. Carter 2024. This is entertaining, President Putin. Yeah, no, that's not good. That's not good. Kevin, you got to play the poopy doopy if he resigns. Yeah, no kidding, huh? We got to do this.
Reamed, double reamed, triple reamed, reaming spree, poopy doopy, fetch me.
Oh, yeah. All right. 1 like. Oh, look at this. Aesop's here says 1 like equals 1 FJB. What does he mean? What's an FJB? Okay, Dylan says, I'm not doing this to bag. Aesop's, by the way, has a YouTube channel too. Go check him out. I'm not doing this to bag on Biden. Kevin proceeding to bag on Biden. I'm not bagging on Biden as a person. I am bagging on him being in the office of president. There's a difference. Why do we care what George Clooney thinks? I don't know. Maybe because he's a giant donor? Thoughts on Project 2025? I was going to read all of Project 2025 and do a full summary on it. And the very same day, Trump posts, I don't even know what it is, haven't read it, you know, not my plan. And I'm like, all right, I don't really want to cover fringe. I want to focus on, you know, Trump, Biden right now. He's just too old and fragile. Come on, Kevin. Joe is proud to be the first black woman vice president. Have a heart. Now it's $4.99. Okay. All right. Kevin for Senate. Oh. Steve. Hey, it's Commodity Steve. What up, buddy? Look at me. I'm the captain now. Thanks for steaming events. It's Commodity Steve. I wonder how the commodities are doing. You're saying Dave Sachs was being sarcastic. Watch clip from all the press. Okay, thank God. I was worried about that because when I read it, I'm like, what? It didn't seem like him. So I'm getting a Reuters report now that Russia tried to assassinate the CEO of a German arms firm sending weapons to Ukraine. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Tab. I'll save that for later. That's very interesting. I actually kind of want to see what that is now while we wait for Joe Biden here. It says here, plot was against Rheinmetall CEO, Armin Papager. U.S. intelligence discovered Russia had a plan to assassinate the CEO of a German arms manufacturer, Rheinmetall, who's been producing artillery shells and military vehicles for Ukraine. The plot to kill the CEO was a series of Russian government plans to assassinate defense industry executives. Holy smokes. Wow. The U.S. informed Germany, and Germany was able to protect the CEO. Holy smokas. That's crazy. Anyway, all right, let me look at the BCOM index while we wait for Biden to speak here because obviously he ain't here yet. BCOM index. How are them commodities doing, Steve? Year to date. I don't know, Steve. Slip it a little bit. Wait, but you're the gold and silver bug. Oh, yeah. I think gold actually did well today. So gold. It's back over 2,400. Yeah. Yeah, look at that. Back over 2,400. I know it looks red right here, but it's at a little peak over here. Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for the clarification on David Sachs that was sarcastic. I did not know. So I appreciate that because I read it and I just got a little, I was disappointed. Moscow Marg for VP. Do you think the reason Trump has not announced his VP is he's waiting for Biden? Napoleon has a quote for this. Never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. Why do you want to get any press right now as Donald Trump when the media is literally destroying Biden for Donald every day? The best thing Donald could do is just nothing. Nothing. It's crazy. It's smart. Kevin, I should have sold my Tesla shares this morning, huh? I'm going to do a Tesla video later. Look, you know, I got lots of exposure to Tesla too. Look, we all knew the robo-taxi event was going to be bullshit, all right? Like, between you and me, okay, just us two here, okay? We all knew it was going to be bullshit, okay? We knew the stock was going to tank right after the robo-taxi event. But we weren't expecting, on the day mega caps are selling off, to all of a sudden get a leak from Bloomberg that Tesla's now delaying the event 2 months because, you know, Elon was probably too excited and had to announce something to get his stock comp plan. Ugh. So, yeah. We got rugged, okay? We got rugged. In true Biden fashion, I just want to say that I love Meet Calvin. What up, BT? Thank you. Joel or Joelle? I understand some people think Joelle is only a girl's name, but actually I had a good buddy whose name was Joelle as a dude. He also had a girlfriend, just to make that clear. So I don't know. I'm going to go with Joel because it's the more common one. But $10. How do you think the market will react if Joe drops out? $5 for the Q&A and $5 for your Ventura. Oh, well, thank you. That's cool on Ventura. So, down. See, Joe Biden in right now pumps the markets because people are like, all right, we're definitely getting Trump. You replace Joe with Kamala, then markets have to price in, oh crap, lower odds for Trump. So then the market goes down. That's my thesis and I'm sticking to it. Credit score is 670. Bro, get your credit score up, man. Pay off some more of those credit cards. I don't know, figure it out. Get that credit score up. 670, come on, man. You got plenty of time to get your score up to a 740, 760 in that range, and buy your first house. Do you think Qs will go down considering how many puts you have on Nvidia? Shh. Yes, I think the Qs are. Unless we rebound tomorrow, and I'm going to post a video on this. Qs are going down, and there are two reasons they could be going down. We'll talk about those in the other video. Elon for Secretary of Transportation and Energy. He would absolutely hate that. Kevin, will you make a video on today's market action? The video's already ready, and I'm going to post it probably like 30 minutes after all this Biden stuff. But I already made the video. It's coming. So stay tuned. Made 45K on Tesla calls last 2 weeks, lost 25K. Yeah, dude, today was insane. I think I had like on my trading portfolio at one point like a 400K swing, and then I made a lot back in puts, but it was like, because it went from like mega gains to like, oh my god, to like puts going, oh my god, and today was nuts. Visit Hungary with your family this summer. Oh, well, thank you for that. I'd love to visit one day, but we're still waiting for Biden here, and I can't do my frickin' job. I can't go on vacation when Joe Biden's not doing his frickin' job. We were supposed to have this press conference an hour and 20 minutes ago. Then we were supposed to have it 20 minutes ago, and now we're probably 10, 15 minutes away from it. So we're still waiting. Boring. Let me see here if I can get some more on this. Another update on this. Somebody wrote, Biden should delay until tomorrow and spend tonight editing his resignation speech. Here we go. Who's this? Some White House reporter. President Biden's press conference is now scheduled to begin at 7 p.m., a delay of 30 minutes. Oh, people were right about that. All right. So still waiting. Biden press conference better be delayed because he's quitting, says someone else. Okay. All right, whatever. Most of the mainstream's on commercial right now. And it looks like they're testing the setup right now for where Biden's going to speak. So we're waiting for that. What happened to us people fighting over each other, these politicians who literally don't give an F about us? This is not what our country is about. F them both. No one really cares. Voting for no one. Wow. You could write me in. It's neat, Kevin. Should Republican voters hope Biden stays in the running? The problem is if he wins, we're all screwed. So I think just for the good of the country, everybody should hope he doesn't play the game. But I think everybody should be happy when he steps down. Here's my last $5. I lost the rest to Tesla calls. Damn. Biden speaks in about 8 minutes. Oh, I think I have a banner for life insurance. Let me make sure I put that across the bottom there. If anybody needs life insurance after today's market action, there's a link below. You go to metkevin.com/life, and you could sign up for life insurance in as little as 5 minutes. And that is a paid promotion.
Paid promotion. Evaluate your own suitability.
There you go. This is entertaining and all, but the real value is doing the Stocks and Sype group. It's worth it. I'm splurging, Kevin. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you joining. You know, I try my best. Again, I can't guarantee we're going straight up, but I do always want to provide research and insights and perspectives, so really appreciate it. Do have a coupon expiring tomorrow. We just raise the price over time because we constantly add value, and you have a price guarantee. So if you join today, and for whatever reason the price is lower in the future, you can email us no matter what time frame in the future, and you'll get your money back. You'll get the difference back. So price match guarantee. That is, I don't expect that'll be used because the price is going up. But I want you to know that. You heard it from me. Kevin, love you. Got a bunch off your classes, looking to make millions off real estate. Much appreciated. Hell yeah. Yeah, this winter, maybe. This winter. Biden issues were obvious in 2020. Anyone surprised was believing the lying media. You know, I think a lot of people lost a lot of respect for the media over the last 4 years. It's probably healthy because, you know, I certainly lost a lot of respect during, you know, the way COVID was handled, what happened during my campaign against Gavin Newsom. That was damaging. You know, obviously what we've seen in you know, national politics. It's been insane. It's been very insane. So, yeah, don't blame that. Oh, what do we have here? Is this it?
A day. There's no safe.
Hold on.
President Putin. He's going to be president.
Oh, no. They're just looping the introduction to President Putin. Okay, so this is not Biden up yet. Still waiting over here. Let me go to here.
You should stay on the ticket. While on the other side of your screen, Republicans unified, gearing up for their convention in Milwaukee as we await a vice presidential pick on that side of the ticket.
I don't know what that is.
Panel. Okay, so we have waited. Let's put up the three that everybody thinks it's down to, although we don't really know.
Love you and your courses. Thank you so much for that donation. Appreciate it. Oh, yeah, they're talking about VP picks over here. Thoughts on taking a loan on a 401k to purchase property? Yeah. I'm usually okay with that. Not personalized advice, but like generally you're borrowing from yourself. I'm typically okay with that, especially if you could get a good deal on the real estate. Oh, they're doing the color settings for the cameras. Getting closer. Experience score 620. B of A pulled it 569. I don't know, man. Both of those are bad. You gotta step it up. You gotta fix that. Fix the underlying issues. Start paying these things off more often every single month. HH donated $1.99. Thank you. Stevenomics. Oh, let's go, dude. Hi, Kevin. I'm a 15-year-old trader and investor. I'm a big fan of yours, and I made a good amount of money on some NVIDIA puts today. Oh, hell yeah, dude. Let's go. Let's go. That's cool. Good for you. You're learning a lot starting at 15. Mastermind. Oh, wow. Okay. This is interesting. $9.99. We're still waiting for Biden here. Should be any minute now. Would love to join your mastermind. Have a call scheduled for Monday. What's the #1 factor for those that can join and those that don't? It's really a personal thing, right? Because we basically, like, we want to make sure that you're able to get value out of it. And so, you know, some people might be like, hey, I just want to hang out. It's like, okay, well, you know, we don't want to take your money. Like, we got to make sure that we think you can actually get more value out of the mastermind than you're paying for it. That's at meetkevin.com/mastermind. Is Biden signing up for life insurance? I hope he does. Thank you. You're at $14 of donations now. That's pretty good. How about when Biden introduced Zelensky as Putin? Yeah, that just happened. Yeah, I saw that. All right, we're getting close here. Biden. Oh, thanks. You linked that citation there on the aneurysm thing. I'll have to look at that. Trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. I mean, life insurance. That's funny. Yeah. All right, we're getting close. They're getting this set up. They're getting the camera set up over here. Oh, Double Espresso Shot just donated $20. Thank you for that. How far out on end-phase calls? Tuh. In this market, I mean, I've been going August, but not right now, man. Dude, if this is just a rotation to smalls, fine. But if everything's gonna go through earnings, I don't want any calls right now. Dude, you're killing it. Watched all your content. I've learned a lot. Keep going. Trump 2024. Oh, thank you for the donation. All right. Thoughts on the SAVE Act that passed out? I actually think it's a good idea that, you know, people have to verify their citizenship to register to vote. You know, the New York Times, was it the New York Times? No, it was the Washington Post. The Washington Post had a piece about the SAVE Act. They're like, oh, that's racist. It's far right-wing Tucker Carlson racism to have people verify that they're citizens to be able to vote. And I'm like, what absolute trash am I reading in the Washington Post? I have the screenshot of it. Actually, I'll just go Washington Post. Washington Post. Tucker Carlson Racism SAVE Act. Oh, yeah, here it is. This was like... Oh, now they're paywalling me. They weren't paywalling me earlier. Okay, I think did I get it? Oh, I think I got in. All right, here it is. It's this article right here. The Great Replacement Theory is now in legislation form. A Republican effort to combine election denialism and border alarmism, known as the SAVE Act, is having the desired effect. And over here, he says, this act basically normalizes the claim of the American political right that there is a deliberate effort underway to flood the country with immigrants who will vote Democrat. This is in essence the Great Replacement Theory. What? The Great Replacement Theory is this theory that, like, you know, white people are being replaced. And this author is trying to link proving you're a citizen to vote to being worried about replacing white people. And then says, an idea transmitted from the racist fringe into mainstream by Tucker Carlson and other prominent Republicans. I don't know. Honestly, like, I'm trying to be non-biased about this. I think this guy is a dumbass. Philip Bump. Dude, his name's Bump. Really? He's a bump on the log is what he is. Philip Bump. Phil Bump. Like, I don't know. Philip Bump, Washington, how to read an author of The Aftermath, New York Times. What about the parallels between this year and okay, I'm gonna go over here. Oh, dude, I can't even. I was gonna leave him a friendly comment. Only accounts who follow P Bump can comment on his stuff. I can't even leave Philip Bump a friendly comment on his Great Replacement Theory. I don't know. I'm trying to look at that from an unbiased point of view, and I'm like, I think the guy's a clown for making that kind of link. Like, it makes me respect him less that he has to go so extreme with this argument. Thanks for the courses and tips and the coverage and deep dives you provide on earnings. Made 400% on options in the last 3 months. Thanks again. Congratulations. Thank you so much for the $4.99 as well. It's not a testimonial. I can't verify when people say they made money or whatever. You know, I want to be clear about that. Do you have thoughts on RFK Jr.? Yes, it's actually very simple that independents can't win. As much as I think they should have a chance, they can't. Jackie Dollar, thank you. Appreciate that. I like giving Kevin money. Thank you. Apple just gave me $1.99. Apple Cracker. Still waiting for Joe Biden. Quote tweet him. Oh, I could do that. I already did tweet about him a little earlier. What did I say? Oh, actually, it wasn't about him. I just tweeted in general. What did I say? These are the following tweets I made today. I said, according to the Washington Post, if you want people to prove they're a citizen to vote, you're part of the racist fringe. Then I wrote, okay, Elon Musk, where's the fake news tweet we're all waiting for? Then I wrote, WTF. Then I said, I don't say this lightly. Markets need to rebound or at least stabilize, other words, recession. Then I wrote, SH9T, SH9T, SH9T. Everyone is saying that I'm overreacting and this is just a healthy pullback. No. And then this is me streaming right now. Oh, look, it's Inception. We're streaming me streaming, which will then stream me streaming. Okay, let's click off this. All right, what does Peter Ducey have to say?
Where he ended up just freewheeling, going on, and it was probably the best that he ever did, and he was funny and engaging, and it was also a high stakes moment during his presidency. But tonight, with this internal pressure building, it's like Doppler radar is showing the looming storm here in the party. I mean, we say it's high stakes, but I don't think I've seen a press conference in my career.
Oh, that's awesome, Macy. Did you send an email to Jobs? Send another email to Jobs and say, hey, McKay, mention Kevin that you posted in the chat. Jobs@mekevin.com. Yeah, remember, we're hiring a bar licensed attorney. You don't need any experience. You just need to have passed the bar. You'll work under our attorney. We're hiring a bookkeeper or someone with accounting experience. We can teach you a lot. And we're hiring somebody with experience in trading in a broker-dealer setting. Ideally, if you have experience in exchange-traded funds. All that at jobs@mekevin.com. Joe says, damn you handsome. Who are you talking to? You're talking about Peter Ducey. All right. Yeah, Biden fashionably late. Yeah, well, he probably forgot he has a speech to give. You always say you lean 51-49 Democrat. What about the Dems that make you lean that 1%? Honestly, I think it's flip-flopped now. I'm probably like more like 49% Dem, 51% Rep. I really try to always look at what's best for the country and best for people. And I see both sides a lot. But there are some things I'm just like, I think are just blatant, things that are American policies, like we need better schools. People need to be able to graduate high school with an education in trades so they can actually be functional without having to go into college debt. I think we need to build more housing. I think people shouldn't be dying on the streets homeless. I think government should be there to handle that. These are things that I just consider American principles. And I also don't think we should have a dementia president leading the country. I think it's an embarrassment, and it's actually, quite frankly, very dangerous. Biden reiterates today that he's staying in, our market's going to the moon. No, because he doesn't even know that he's getting pressured to drop out from the inside. Remember, on the front of the New York Times right now, what they're basically trying to do is they're trying to build up the strategy to convince Joe Biden that he's going to step down. The White House is still denying this, but this is all on the front page on the Times, and I'm not saying the Times is right. What I'm saying is that I think they're trying to build up the evidence. See, Biden advisors weigh how to convince him. What they're basically doing is they're running polling now to see will Kamala poll better than Biden, so they can go to Biden and say, hey, look, Kamala will do better than you for the good of the country. Would you mind stepping down? That's what they're going to try to do. And so it's going to take some effort, but that's what Democrats are working right now. They're also trying to figure out how to get the president to actually talk on camera. They're teleprompters. Dude, so bull freaking crap. Bull crap. They said unscripted. They said it would be unscripted, and now they're teleprompters. Freaking liars again. What the F? The Biden press conference was supposed to be unscripted, and the teleprompters are out again. Sorry, I'm ranting on X. Go retweet it if you're pissed too. Now I gotta change the freaking title. Scammed again. Rugged again. You know how many times a man can only get rugged so many times in one day before he resorts To more alcohol. To alcohol. God. Gotta frickin' change the title on YouTube, but I can't change it on Twitch and X because they don't let me once I'm streaming. Ruin my title. Oh. Bro, we want to hear Peter Doocy, not you, buddy. Peter Doocy's funny. You know, he asked him the other day in the briefing room, you know, what did he say? He's like, you know, hey, if there's a nuclear attack at 11 o'clock, you know, who answers the call? Is it, you know, Jill Biden? Because Joe's probably asleep. I wish I was able to vote. I'm a DACA recipient, brought over from my parents when I was 2, currently 26, no path to citizenship. So I do think they need to fix the immigration system. Like, I have no ill will towards you at all. It's not your fault the immigration system sucks. You've been here for 24 years. You basically have been here, like, forever. You know, I don't think people in your situation should be screwed the way you are. You know, the immigration system sucks. Like, there should be a very streamlined, simple way for people to become legal immigrants. You have to make sure they're not like gangbangers from Venezuela that are going to come shoot cops because it's popular to do that. Biden busy trying to pump the market with a straw, says Aesop's. $1.99. Yeah. So, all right. If Harris turns on Biden, can he change his VP? The Democratic Party is going to be unified here. You know, they're going to come out with one unified answer. Somebody donated saying Biden overslept. Yeah, so I don't think that's too much of a risk. We're getting really close to his bedtime. It's going to be teleprompter Joe though. So it's total bullcrap again. Early onset Republican is kicking in. $1.99. Go more right, you know it's better. Comment on the SAVE Act. I just did. Is it okay? It's okay, even with teleprompters, he'll mess up. Well, he'll probably take no questions, you know? This is bullcrap, though. It's supposed to be, you know, whatever. Severson's Garage. I'm a member of the executive team at Tesla. That's kind of cool. I watch all your videos. I want so badly to basically to tell me out loud when you're right and wrong. Still very funny listening to all your theories. Well, hopefully I'm more right than I'm wrong, but I appreciate you. That's also weird. The Tesla executive team is watching. Now I feel like the pressure's on. No. I'm just a guy on YouTube. Biden's gonna come out Wolf of Wall Street. Would you prefer Harris or Trump as president? It's a great question. Everybody should give their opinion on that by voting. If they hashed out a resignation speech each for Biden to read on the teleprompter, do you think he would read it and not realize what he's doing? No. They won't ambush him like that. They wouldn't do that to him. You know, they need a unified front. You're in front of a NATO council here too. You know, this is just going to be about, hey, today I announced more money for Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. You know, this is taking so long because they got to finish the teleprompter script. That's why it's delayed so long. The script ain't ready. The Fugazi ain't ready. It's a joke. Oh. Man. Come on. All right, let's listen in here for a moment.
His donations, the big donors, running away. Two well-connected Democrat Party consultants who work closely with the top donors are telling Fox there has been a major slowdown in Biden's fundraising over the past week. Joining us now, Laura Trump, co-chair of the RNC. Laura, this press conference is being billed as, you know, the most important press conference of the president's term. But is it going to be enough to reboot this stalled fundraising operation?
Well, my question, Laura, is actually why are they doing this to him? This is, it appears to some people, like a way maybe to just go ahead and embarrass Joe Biden a little bit more and kind of usher him on his way out. I mean, the truth is, even in these very scripted, pre-taped interviews like he did with George Stephanopoulos, he still can't get it done. You had one of those radio stations he called into last week where they gave the questions from the White House directly to the radio station saying, we actually had to edit some of that because it was so bad, even though you gave us the questions in advance for Joe Biden. So the idea, Laura, that he's going to come out on this stage and do anything miraculous at this point, I think is a super long shot. I mean, if you want to call it a Hail Mary, you can call it that. In my mind, I can't figure out why the heck you would put Joe Biden out there, if not to maybe further embarrass him and try to convince him to quit and bow out of this thing early. They have a huge problem on their hands. They're backed in a corner. And I know you guys were just talking about Kamala Harris as the second. Let's not forget, when Kamala Harris actually ran for president, she polled so poorly and did so poorly, she had to drop out before her own home state.
Take a look at this. I was just looking for, I just did a quick Google of it just to provide because I like if I say something, I'd like to have the facts to back it up too. Yeah, unless I clearly make it clear that's an opinion. But look at this. Biden's solo unscripted news conference. This is what we were pitched today. That we were going to get a solo unscripted news conference. So I wrote, effing liars. It's a joke, man. It's a freaking joke. Biden will be put to the test on Thursday. That's today, right? Yep. When he holds his first solo news conference of the year. High stakes moment. But any stumbles in the unscripted setting could add fuel to the fire. Now the teleprompters are out. The news conference will come after Biden concludes hosting the NATO summit. Freaking liars, man. Now I'm just getting pissed. He's looking forward to it. Yeah, he's looking forward to the teleprompter. And even the questions. I guarantee you the questions are going to be scripted too. Like, they're already going to know who they're going to pick, and the answers are going to be on the teleprompter. I don't trust it when the teleprompter's there. Take the teleprompter down, you scums. Just lying to the American people now. Your phone notification? Oh, sorry. You guys, you can hear that? It's the stupid Twitter stuff is on. All right, let me listen to this. I had those off for a while.
Their whole effort. This is how I think they're going to pull it, Laura.
Imagine if Biden comes out Willy Wonka style with a fall somersault and a jump. Oh, God.
Into a big production for diversity and the future and youth vote. I think that's how it's going to go, and they are going to be united, I believe, behind her. Are you at all concerned about that, and wouldn't Joe Biden staying in be a lot better for you?
Well, look.
Joe Biden's press conference delayed again. Now it's 14 minutes to go.
As vice president, she has epically failed. Let's think about what her tasks were while she was vice president. Her first task was border czar. And you look at the 10 million plus people who have illegally crossed our border. We've never seen a more porous border and an unsecured border than we have right now during this administration. I think you have to go back, whether it's Biden or Harris, to their track record. And she has a horrific track record as vice president. She was sold to people, to your point, Laura, as some historic figure. We should all be excited that she is the first minority female vice president. That's great. I just want somebody, as a woman myself, who can get the job done. And obviously,
right. I agree with that. Like somebody who actually has a memory.
Is going to buy that she can do a better job at being president when she completely failed her very few roles as vice president. I don't know. It might be a tough sell to the American people. Maybe they get a few more people on board, but I don't think it matters to us.
Okay, let's flip around just to get some other
really
perspective
weak
here.
Candidates. They wanted to focus attention on Richard Nixon as the understudy to this old and sometimes ill president. And the Democrats did a stunt in order to do that. At the 1956 convention, they held an open convention to choose the vice presidential running mate for Stevenson, thinking that that would give them a whole big boost of energy. Well, yeah, I'm sure it gave them a big boost of energy, but they got shellacked in November. So, I mean, it's not that these sorts of domestic political considerations have not been weighed by the electorate before. This is the sort of thing that has happened in some ways in some elections before. I just don't know that that history is predictive. It does mean that we've confronted these measures before. It does mean that concerns about the health and age of a presidential incumbent is a...
Look, the last time you had a senile leader, according to the Economist, was that Brezhnev or whatever from the Soviet Union era? It was a disaster. Poor guy was like drooling on himself. That's what we're going to have with Biden in 4 years. Again, I'm not trying to pick left or right. Just saying, anything but Biden.
If I win, I mean... There aren't stakes like that. There are in fiction, but not in real life.
It's sort of nightmarish, but I have to say that Adlai Stevenson, second only to Estes Kefauver, as the person that kept on being the also-rans of history. Estes Kefauver, I feel like he was nominated or at least tried for it so much, but Adlai Stevenson, poor Adlai, he had dreams,
Never got there. Never got there.
But the other thing I will note, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rachel, this was the era when it was a lot easier because there was no sort of popular referendum.
We're just running on fumes now. And I understand that there are a lot of people in the White House that they don't want to give in.
Well, I can't hear a word this guy's saying. Didn't they check this guy's audio before they put him on CNN? What is this?
I completely understand this, but the fundraising and high-end fundraising Democratic Party is shut down. The congressional leadership.
Lame.
The scrappy kid from Scranton. You were the first decision I made as a nominee, and it was the best.
Well, you won't hear Obama say anything like that now. New reporting reveals that he knew about George Clooney's devastating op-ed on Biden before it came out, didn't bother trying to stop it. Tacit approval, wink, wink. None of it's surprising, though. Even the Biden campaign finally figured out who's behind all this.
The Biden campaign and many Democratic officials do believe that Barack Obama is quietly working behind the scenes to orchestrate this. If Joe Biden believes that, that's not going to get him out of the race any faster.
I don't understand that analysis, but joining me now, Vivek Ramaswamy, former presidential candidate.
Look, it's Vivek. Vivek made it. Let's see what he has to say.
Do you think Joe Biden cares about what Barack Obama thinks, or the donors think, or George Clooney thinks, or Jill, for that matter, at this point?
The reality is I don't think Joe Biden has enough of a functioning brain apparatus. I don't mean that insultingly, Laura. I mean it literally, for him to be the person who's making that decision. The real question is, what does Jill Biden think, and maybe Hunter Biden? And the reality is I think this is all part of an extended negotiation. Think about a board trying to oust a CEO. That's an extended negotiation for an exit package. That's what this is. A lot of the public puffery. Biden is done. There's no way he can be the nominee with this level of crumbling support. The only question is how well the Biden family gets taken care of. It's effectively a negotiation on price, and I only mean that half jokingly, somewhat metaphorically, but I think quite possibly literally, Laura. That's what this comes down to. So when the cards have fallen, when Obama's on the other side, the ultimate puppet masters have decided their puppet has to go. The die has been cast, and the rest of this is really just a negotiation for the Biden's landing pad and the golden parachute. That's what's going on.
Well, think about it. They're about to make some big announcement, I believe, about NATO and Ukraine. And so we have a figurehead president doling out tens of billions of dollars, which will continue the killing fields of Ukraine, both sides losing huge numbers of people. And yet everybody knows the man is non compos mentis in the way you need to be president. I mean, that in and of itself, isn't that a scandal?
Of course it's a scandal, and the deeper scandal is it even relates to that same Biden family dynamic that I described. Think about this. Hunter Biden was sitting on the board of Burisma. This is a Ukrainian state-affiliated energy company that Hunter Biden had no business sitting on the board of. And yet that is the exact same country that Joe Biden, the puppet, directs hundreds of billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money to afterwards. If the same shoe fit the other foot and this was a Republican or, God forbid, Donald Trump, imagine what the reaction would be. So those are the same people.
Yeah, Vivek's not wrong about that one. I don't know if the Biden family themselves, if it's the goal is like, oh, how much money they can get to get pushed aside. I do think Biden legitimately thinks he's the best chance against Trump. But both could also be true.
Our side is a lot of this creates a distraction, an artificial distraction to make the entire message about Biden or who they're going to put up. I think it's a risk for Republicans this fall. The red wave that never came in 2022. I don't want to see that happen again in 24, but if we spend all of our time talking about the shenanigans of who the Democrats are going to put up, in late August they put up a new puppet that's a honeymoon phase with the public that lasts through November. I think that's a real risk that we have to be alert to right now. So at the convention next week and beyond, we got to focus on our own message, regardless of which puppet they're playing with.
Yeah.
Wow. This is these are veggies, salmon, and a little bit of pasta.
The same policy is going to be in place. He's not making decisions now, so he's not making decisions, and he'll probably step aside in the next 4 years anyway. So it's Kamala Harris. And we know who Kamala Harris is. And the same policies that have destroyed America, our economy, our border, our foreign policy, are going to continue. So the policies are what matter. The personality, it's fascinating, the drama, the tragedy of it all. But it's the policies. And it always has been, and that's why he was behind before the debate, and that's why he's behind primarily now.
That's exactly right. And the reality is the people we elect to run the government in the United States anymore, Laura, they're not the ones who actually run the government. Kamala Harris's low IQ is the same as Joe Biden's cognitive difficulties. That's actually not a bug. It is a feature for the people who control them. That's
ouch. That's bad. He basically just said they're so dumb, but that's part of the feature is somebody else can control the puppets.
Mantle that managerial class in the deep state. That's what we're up against. And the figurehead they put up matters a lot less.
Well, Vivek, they think that somehow pouring more money into Ukraine and hosting Zelensky for the umpteenth time, where he comes out with his hand outstretched. I know a lot of people love Zelensky. That's fine. We hope Ukraine does well, and we hope Putin gets put back on his heels. But is that what Americans are going to be voting about? Do they want us more deeply entrenched and possibly risking thermonuclear war with these people in charge, or anyone in charge, frankly?
We're closer to World War III than we've ever been in my lifetime. This used to be something that the left was dead set against, yet now the captured Democratic Party is actually part of that pro-war machine. And I do worry, Laura. You think about the American people's trust in the people who are making decisions. The same people on the south side of Chicago who are seeing encampments for migrants being set up in their city or converting high schools into encampments for migrants, seeing $200 billion of our own taxpayer money flow into some Ukrainian kleptocrat can buy a bigger house. All the while, you got people in charge in the United States who have no idea where that money's even going. Even a current president of the United States referring to him even offhandedly and mistakenly as Putin today. I think it's frustrating to a lot of Americans who are left holding the bag in a difficult economy, inflation and prices rising at a faster rate than wages have, and yet seeing their own taxpayer resources going to increasing the risk of World War III. By the way, if Ukraine had done a peace deal a couple of years ago, before we had spent this money, Ukraine would have had a better peace deal than they could get today after $200 billion of American taxpayer resources have been used to help subsidize that war. That is senseless.
I can't argue that.
It's going to bring along a lot of independents, maybe even former Democrats, to deliver potentially a landslide, a broad coalition that I think Trump can deliver, but that's an opportunity we shouldn't squander.
Yeah, I mean, who's everyone concerned about? Is Putin and Xi concerned about Kamala Harris? Or Putin and Xi concerned about a stronger American economy where it's truly peace through strength? To me, this is all played into Xi's hands. It's all played into their hands.
Yeah. Well, strength starts at home. And I think that that's something we're going to be able to revive, but takes the right result this November.
Vivek, this idea that these high-placed Democrats and celebrities and donors are coming forward in profile.
Oh, that guy just walked out the script for Biden. The off-teleprompter script. It's the little reference book or whatever they bring out. That guy just put it on the podium. So now you have book with notes open to the page Biden needs it on. And the teleprompter. which you can like live type in the answers to. This is a scam.
Down and take the whole party with.
I know, because I own those teleprompters. They're not set up here, but you could buy them. They're literally called presidential teleprompters. I think it was like $3,000 or whatever. You got the little box around them. I got them. I own them.
Absolutely. I mean, these people will lie to your face and take your money while you're at it. Imagine if you were at George Clooney's fundraiser. You should be asking for a refund. Several weeks ago, the guy's raising money for President Biden until the managerial class gets online and then now suddenly turns on him. It's the sheer dishonesty of it. And I think even most Democrats, Laura, I think are now sick and tired of that. That presents an opportunity for us to, you know what, unite this country. You may not agree with Republicans on every one of our policies, but you at least deserve a president who is straightforward with you and tells you the truth, even if that comes with some mean tweets from time to time. Maybe you weren't into that in 2016. You can be into that in 2024. So this is an opportunity for us as Republicans. And as long as we don't get sucked into the nonsense of the other side, focus on our own message and our own agenda, I think this is pretty historic as an opportunity for us.
Yeah, this is about to start. They're introducing.
Oh, here he is. Here he is.
Oh, my God. Out on stage. This is a Fox News alert. President Biden walking out and the long-delayed news conference. Let's watch.
We just concluded this year's NATO summit, and the consensus among the members was it was a great success. It's especially momentous because it represented the 75th year of the most important military defense alliance in the world's history of the world. We should never forget that NATO grew out of the wreckage of World War II, the most destructive war in history. The idea was to create an alliance of free and democratic nations that would commit themselves to a compact of collective defense. Standing together, they knew we'd all be safer. An attack on one would be treated as an attack on all. And it's worked because a would-be aggressor knows if they attack one of us, they'll be attacked by all of us. Sending that message is the best way to deter aggression and prevent wars in the first place. For those who thought NATO's time had passed, they got a rude awakening when Putin invaded Ukraine. Some of the oldest and deepest fears in Europe roared back to life because once again, a murderous madman was on the march. But this time, no one cowered in appeasement, especially the United States. We collected intelligence that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine months before the invasion. I directed the intelligence community to be a significant amount of intelligence to be declassified so I could start building an international coalition to oppose the invasion. Then in February,
teleprompter glitch,
I warned the world that the invasion was imminent. I rallied a coalition of 50 nations from Europe to Asia to help Ukraine defend itself. Many foreign policy experts thought as Putin amassed Russian forces just 100 miles north of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, but Putin thought it was the mother home of Russia. The capital would fall in less than a week. But the Ukrainian people, backed by a coalition to help build, stopped them. Today, Kyiv still stands, and NATO stands stronger than it has ever been. During the week of this summit, several heads of states made it a point in their statements to thank the United States and to thank me personally for all that NATO has achieved. NATO is not only stronger, NATO is bigger because we led the charge to bring in Finland and Sweden into the alliance. And it makes a gigantic difference. Excuse me. Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's made it clear that he would feel no obligation to honor Article 5. He's already told Putin, and I quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." In fact, the day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius. It was wonderful. Some of you forgot that, but that's exactly what he said. But I made it clear, a strong NATO is essential to American security. And I believe the obligation of Article 5 is sacred. And I would remind all Americans, Article 5 is invoked only once in NATO's long history, and that was to defend America after 9/11. I made it clear that I will not bow down to Putin. I will not walk away from Ukraine. I will keep NATO strong. That's exactly what we did, and exactly what we'll continue to do. Now, the future of American policy is up to the American people. This is much more than a political question. It's more than that. It's a national security issue. Don't reduce this to the usual testament that people talk about, issues of being a political campaign.
Keep in mind, this whole Trump, like, do whatever the hell you want thing was if you didn't pay your dues, right? That was Trump's argument.
Every American must ask herself or himself, is the world safer with NATO? Are you safer? Is your family safer? I believe the American people know. The answer to all those questions is yes. And I believe the American people understand that America is stronger because of our alliances. I believe the American consensus from Truman to Reagan to me still holds today. America cannot retreat from the world. We must lead the world. We're an indispensable nation, as Madeleine Albright wrote. Now let me turn to three other key issues. Just this morning, we had a great economic report showing inflation is down. Overall prices fell last month. Core inflation is the lowest it's been in 3 years. Prices are falling for cars, appliances, and airfares. Grocery prices have fallen since the start of the year. We're going to keep working to take down corporate greed to bring those prices down further. Meanwhile, Trump's calling for a 10% tariff on everything Americans buy, including food from overseas, vegetables, and other necessities. And economists tell us that that would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. It's a tax of $2,500 a year. Second, our efforts to secure the border, southern border, is working. After Trump killed the bipartisan effort to secure the border, Republicans and Democrats had worked on, because he thought it would benefit me and make him a loser, Republicans walked away. So I took executive action last month. As a consequence,
the same executive action that Trump used, by the way,
gone down over 50%. The current level is lower today than when Trump left office. Third, for months, the United States has been working to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, to bring the hostages home, to create a path for peace and stability in the Middle East. 6 weeks ago, I laid out a detailed plan in writing. It was endorsed by the UN Security Council, the G7. That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas. So I sent my team to the region to hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close. We're making progress. The trend is positive. And I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now. Let me conclude where I began. We're the United States of America. We are the indispensable nation. Our leadership matters. Our partnerships matter. This moment matters. We must rise to meet it. With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given a list of people to call on here.
Oh!
Mr. President, your political future has hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments into your decision to stay? And separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. Let's start there.
Vice President Trump!
Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again. Secondly, the idea, I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that senators and congressmen running for office worry about the ticket is not unusual. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now, later in the campaign. So there's a long way to go in this campaign. And so I'm just going to keep moving. And because, look, I got more work to do. We've got more work to finish. There's so much, we've made so much progress. Think about it. Think about where we are economically relative to the rest of the world. Name me a world leader who wouldn't want to trade places with our economy. We've created over 800,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million jobs. I mean, so things are moving. We got more to go. Working class people still need help. Corporate greed is still at large. Their prices, the corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. They're coming down. And so I'm optimistic about where things are going. Danny Kemp, AFP.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about you mixed up Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier today. And you now have sort of your key allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, and the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on that. And officials here are saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing in my leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, Putin. I said, oh, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky. And then I added 5 other names. Look, guys, the idea anybody suggests that we haven't had an incredibly successful conference. How many times did you hear in that conference, I know it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden, because Biden did the following. Look, folks, this is well, anyway, I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time, and find me a world leader who didn't think it was. Next one, Nancy Cordes, CBS.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned other instances in history where presidents have faced a challenge, but what makes this moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling on you to reconsider your decision to stay in the race. It's your friends, supporters, people who think you've done a great job over the past 4 years. Have you spent time thinking about what it would mean for your legacy, which you've worked decades to build, if you stay in the race, despite the concerns that voters say they have, and you lose to someone who you yourself have argued is unfit to return to the Oval Office?
Well, look, I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall, understandably, many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward, can't do that, it's going to cause inflation, things are going to skyrocket, the debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now from mainstream economists?
Inflation did go up.
16 economic Nobel laureates.
And debt also did go up a lot.
Job. That under my plan so far and what's going to happen in the future if I'm reelected, that things are going to get much better. Our economy is growing. I was determined when I got elected to stop the trickle-down economic theory, that if the wealthy did very well, everybody else would do well. My dad was a well-read, decent guy. I don't remember much trickling down on his kitchen table. Middle-class people and working-class people need help. And so what happened is I decided to was able to implement as president what I believed when I was a senator. And that is that the way to build this economy is from the middle out and the bottom up. That way we grow the economy. And the wealthy still do very well. They do fine. And guess what? Find me an economist, a mainstream economist who said we haven't done well. What have we not done that isn't working right now? And so we got more to do, though. We got to finish the job. And by the way, I come from the corporate state of the world. Delaware has more corporations registered in Delaware than every other state in the nation combined. I'm not anti-corporate, but corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. Doubled. It's time things get back in order a little bit. It's time, for example, if I'm reelected, we're going to make sure that rents are kept at 5% increase. Corporate rents for apartments and the like and homes are limited to 5%. We're going to make.
He's proposing nationwide rent control now?
Because we're going to continue to grow this economy. And by the way, remember how I got so roundly criticized for being so pro-union, not labor, union. Well, guess what? I've been the most pro-union labor president in history. Not a joke. And guess what? We had the Treasury Department do a study. When unions do better, everybody does better. Everybody does better. And we talk about how, for example, remember when we talked about getting the computer chip industry back in the United States? Used to be 40% of the industry. We invented the chip. 40% of the industry was in the United States. And former presidents decided that the best way to do it is find the cheapest labor in the world, send the product over there and import what the product was. And so what did I do? I was told not to go over to to Asia, including Europe, but Asia. And I remember going to South Korea, convincing them to invest $20 billion in the United States to build computer chip factories. And I asked why when they finally decided to do it. And the answer was because you have the safest economy in the world and you have the best workers in the world. So the whole idea here is we've invested, there's over $50 billion in investment in computer chip manufacturing just coming in the bean. None of you thought that would happen. None of you thought that would happen. But it's happening. It's happening. And it's going to grow economies all through. And by the way, red states and blue states. Matter of fact, there's as much in red states as in blue states. I've made no distinction. So my generic point is that the idea that we can't continue to build and grow the economy, make it fairer. And like I said, from my standpoint, when the middle class does well, that's when the whole economy grows. The poor have a shot, the wealthy do well, but the wealthy got to start paying their taxes.
As a follow-up, sir, you mentioned that your Vice President Kamala Harris would be ready to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies to have control over their bodies. Secondly, her ability to handle almost any issue on the board. This was a hell of a prosecutor. She was a first-rate person, and in the Senate she was really good. I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she was qualified to be president. From the very beginning, I made no bones about that. She is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her. Felicia Schwartz, Financial Times.
Thank you, Mr. President. Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about. And if you looked at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore. I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball? I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing. And I don't know how many, don't hold me to it, roughly 20 major events. Someone with thousands of people showing up. And so I just think it's better. I always have an inclination, whether I was playing sports or doing politics, just to keep going, not stop. I just got to just pace myself a little more. Pace myself. And the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling into 15 time zones a week before. Anyway, that's what it was about. That's what it was about. And by the way, even with that, I love my staff, but they add things all the time. At the very end, I'm catching hell from my wife for that. Anyway, I'm sorry, Zeke Miller, Associated Press.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two questions for you. First, on the NATO summit, President Zelensky, in your meeting with him, he pressed you to lift your limitations on the Ukrainian use of American weapons, saying that, in his public remarks afterwards, saying that Ukraine cannot win the war unless those limitations are lifted. Are you reconsidering
Quickly,
your
I think it's interesting how he said, I add things all the time. You should be leading.
Leaders of your own party have said that they're not worried about that debate. They're worried about the next bad night and the bad night after that. How can you reassure the American people that you are up to the task and that there won't be more bad nights at a debate stage or somewhere else?
First thing about Zelensky asking for the ability to strike deep into Russia. We've allowed Zelensky to use American weapons in the near term, in the near or abroad, into Russia. Whether or not he should be attacked. For example, should Zelensky, he's not. If he had the capacity to strike Moscow, strike the Kremlin, would that make sense? It wouldn't. The question is, what's the best use of the weaponry he has, and the weaponry we're getting to him? I've gotten a more long-range capacity, as well as defensive capacity. And so our military is where I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people. And we're making a day-to-day basis on what they should and shouldn't go, how far they should go in. That's a logical thing to do. Second question related to
Bad nights, sir. How can you reassure the American people that you won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage or it's a matter of foreign policy?
Well, I tell you what, the best way to assure them is the way I assure myself. And that is, am I getting the job done? Am I getting the job done? Can you name me somebody who's gotten more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs just last week. So if I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet. None. Who I got here? Merrick.
Come on.
Pulaski Radio.
Oh, come on.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm well.
The elections in the US have consequences around the world. You have pretty high standing in Europe. I just asked President Macron about you, and he said we are happy to have him as the President of the United States. But there is a concern. Many people in Poland and across Europe are worried that the former president may win the election. And there's a lot of concern that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, stop supporting Ukraine, or push Ukraine to give up territories to Russia.
They're correct.
And yourself was warning just 2 minutes ago about it. So my question is, do you think that Europe will be left on its own if Donald Trump wins the election? And what's your advice to European leaders to prepare for possible US disengagement?
Well, look, I think, how can I say this without sounding too self-serving? I'm not having any of my European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win. You can't let this guy come forward. It'd be a disaster. It'd be a disaster. I mean, I think he said in one of his rallies, don't hold me to this, recently, where NATO, I just learned about NATO or something to that effect. Foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian. That worries, as I tell you from Poland, that worries Europe. That worries Poland. And nobody, including the people of Poland, think that if he wins in Ukraine, he's going to stop in Ukraine, that that's going to be the end of it. And so what I can say is, I think I'm the best qualified person to do the job, to make sure that Ukraine does not fall, that Ukraine succeeds, that the European alliance stays strong. You may recall, no one was talking about Finland joining NATO. I remember talking to Putin right after we got elected in Geneva, and he was talking about what we should do. We couldn't be in Eastern Europe, etc. And I said, you're looking for the Finlandization of Ukraine, as you're going to get the NATOization of Finland. And about 4 weeks later, I got a call. That's not true. Probably 5 months later, from the president of Finland, could he come and see me? In my office, I invited him to the Oval Office. We sat down and talked. He said he wanted to join NATO. Could I help? And I did. It wasn't automatic. And then I got a call from the Swedes. I beg your pardon? And so Finland joined NATO. 800-mile border is a significant, and they were already allies, but they weren't part of NATO. And you heard, I think you heard, maybe, I can't recall whether he said it public in our closed meeting, but he wouldn't mind being repeated. He said, we decided in Finland, the people of Finland decided they had to be part of NATO. It was in our interest because of the joint ability to be together, to dissuade any attack on Finland. And the same thing with Sweden. It took a lot of selling to some folks, particularly in Turkey and other places, to agree to the expansion. But it expanded. And we're a hell of a lot stronger because of it. We're more secure because of it. And by the way, I was able to get 50 other nations, 50, to support Ukraine. 50. And we were able to bring about a coalition of Europe and Asia, Japan and South Korea. I just we talked about AUKUS, and we talked about the relationship between Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, the United States. We're making the world safer and stronger because we have to deal with the new arrangement that exists in the world. The Cold War is over. The post-war era is over. What is going to replace it? And I respectfully suggest I have a pretty good idea what that should be. I've convinced a lot of people to follow it, and we're just going to get stronger. David Sanger. Where is it?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Be nice, David.
Mr. President, the NATO declaration that was issued yesterday was very notable because it described China as a decisive enabler of the war in Ukraine for its provision of critical goods to the Russians. That's part of a broader partnership that seems to have cemented in place in the past 2 or 3 years. I think one that you were a little bit doubtful of when we asked you about it some time ago. So I'd be interested to know whether you have a strategy now of trying to interrupt the partnership between China and Russia, and whether or not in a second term you would pursue that, if you could describe that strategy to us. And along the way, could you also tell us whether you think, just to follow up on Felicia's question, that if you were in a room with Vladimir Putin again, the way you were 3 years ago, or with President Xi, that a few years from now you will be able to go negotiate with them, handle them one-on-one?
Well, the first part of your question is, we discussed and I raised in the NATO summit, and others raised, the future of China's involvement, what they're going to do, what they're doing with Russia in terms of accommodating, facilitating. They're getting access to additional. They're not supplying weapons themselves. They're supplying mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons. And China's position is basically, and I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has, over 90 hours since being vice president all the way through, for real. And by the way, I handed all my notes. But my point is that Xi believes that China is a large enough market that they can entice any country, including European countries, to invest there in return for commitments from Europe to do A, B, C, or D, or not to do certain things. What's happened is we had a long discussion about what we have to make clear. China has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity, along with working with North Korea and others to help Russia in armament, that they're not going to benefit economically as a consequence of that by getting the kind of investment they're looking for. And so, for example, we're in a situation where, and we've reestablished direct contact with China after that, remember the balloon, quote unquote, going down, and all of a sudden things came to an end? Well, we set up a new mechanism. There's a direct line between Xi and me, and our military has direct access to one another, and they contact one another when we have problems. The issue is that we have to make sure that Xi understands there's a price to pay for undercutting both the Pacific Basin as well as Europe, and it relates to Russia and dealing with Ukraine. And so for example, if you want to invest in China, as you know this area really well, if you want to invest in China, you have to have a 51% Chinese owner. You have to make sure that you do by their rules. And you don't have the authority, and you have to provide all access to all the data and information you have. There was a while there, as you recall, the last administration and other administrations, where the access to that market was enticing enough to get companies to come in because they had access to over 1 billion people in a market, not 1 billion, but a lot of people in the market. And so they were doing it. But that got curtailed when we started saying we're going to play by the same rules. For example, the idea they don't abide by the international rules related to subsidizing products by the government funding. So guess what? They're not going to be able to export their electric vehicles to the United States without a significant tariff. Others are doing the same thing around the world. But it is a concern.
He was just bagging on Trump for tariffs.
That you have both China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, countries that are not necessarily coordinated in the past, looking to figure out how they can have impact.
Do you have a strategy to interrupt that impact?
Yes, I do, but I'm not prepared to talk about the detail of it in public And I think you'll see that some of our European friends are going to be curtailing their investment in Russia. In China, as long as China continues to have this indirect help to Russia in terms of being able to help their economy as well as help them in, as a consequence, that their ability to fight in Ukraine. The other thing that we talked a lot about is that, and I raised it, and I didn't hear any. I can't swear that everyone agreed because not everyone got to talk about it, but we need a new industrial policy in the West. For example, we talked about how both the EU as well as NATO has to be able to begin to build their own munition capacity, has to be able to generate their own capacity to provide for weapons and the ability to. It came as a surprise to some of us how we had fallen behind in the West in terms of the ability to construct new material, new weaponry, new everything from vehicles to weapon systems. And so one of the things that came out of this was we're going to be meeting again with a number of my colleagues, my European colleagues, is what do we do to increase the capacity of the West, particularly in Europe and Japan, to be able to generate the kind of ability to produce their own weapon systems. Not just for themselves, but to be able to generate that. It's the same, it's what Russia's trying to figure out, that they went to China and they didn't get the weapons, but then they went to North Korea. But we're going to be in a position where the West is going to become the industrial base for it to be able to build the ability to have all the defensive weapons that we need. That was a discussion as well.
Mr. President, I'm not sure you answered on whether you would be ready to go deal with Putin and Xi 2 or 3 years from now.
I'm ready to deal with them now and 3 years from now. Look, like I said, I'm dealing with Xi right now and direct contact with him. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now. There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior. But there isn't any world leader I'm not prepared to deal with. But I understand the generic point is Putin ready to talk? I'm not ready to talk to Putin unless Putin's ready to change his behavior. And the idea, look, Putin's got a problem. First of all, in this war that he is supposedly have won, and by the way, I think, don't hold me to the exact number, but I think that Russia had 17.3% of Ukraine that they've conquered. Now it's 17.4. I mean, in terms of percentage of territory. They've not been very successful. They've caused horrible damage, loss of life, but they've also lost over 350,000 troops, military, killed or wounded. They have over 1 million people, particularly young people with technical capability, leaving Russia because they see no future there. They've got a problem. But what they do have control of is they are very good at controlling and running the public outcry that relates to how they use mechanisms to communicate with people. They lie like hell through the constituencies. They lie like hell about what's going on. And so the idea that we're going to be able to fundamentally change Russia in the near term is not likely. But one thing for certain, if we allow Russia to succeed in Ukraine, they're not stopping in Ukraine. I recommend, I know you know this because you've written about it, read Putin's speech after they moved in, what it was all about in Kyiv. It wasn't about just, anyway, read what his objective is. And Anyway, but so I think that I'm prepared to talk to any leader who wants to talk, including if Putin called me and wanted to talk. Last time I talked to Putin was trying to get him to work on an arms control agreement related to nuclear weapons in space. That didn't go very far. So my point is, I'm prepared to talk to anybody, but I don't see any inclination. There is an inclination on the part of the Chinese to keep in contact with me, because they're not sure where this all goes. And look what's happened in Asia. We have strengthened the Asian Pacific area more than anybody else has. We just put together with, today I brought on, I asked our NATO allies that we bring on the group from the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Australia. I already mentioned Australia. And I met twice now, I think, with the 14 leaders of the Pacific Island nations. And we've slowed down what's going on there. We've slowed down China's reach. But there's a lot of work to do. This is a moving target, and I don't take it lightly. Assam from NPR.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asma Khalid with NPR. I have two questions. Earlier, you spoke about the ceasefire plan between Israel and Hamas. We're now looking at 10 months of war, and I'm curious if there's anything that you feel personally you wish you would have done differently over the course of the war. And then secondly, if I may, I wanted to ask you about your presidential campaign. I remember covering your campaign in 2020, and there was a moment where you referred to yourself as a, quote, bridge candidacy, a transition to a younger generation of leaders. I want to understand what changed.
Two things. Let's go back to when you talked about would I have changed anything that's happening with Israel and the Palestinians and the Palestinian movement. The answer is, as you recall, from the very beginning, I went to Israel, but I also got immediate contact with al-Sisi in Egypt. I met with the King of Jordan. I met with most of the Arab leaders to try to get a consensus going as to what had to be done to deal with getting more aid and food and medicine into the Gaza Strip. And we pushed it really hard. And Israel occasionally was less than cooperative, number one. The Israeli War Cabinet, I've been dealing with Israel since Golda Meir. Some of the reporters around here come here all the time have heard me say this. The first time I met with Golda Meir, I sat across from her at her desk, and her assistant was Rabin sitting next to me. That's how far back I go. I know Israel well, and I support Israel. But this war cabinet is one of the most conservative war cabinets in the history of Israel. And there's no ultimate answer other than a two-state solution here. And so what was able to be done in terms of the plan I put together was it would be a process for a two-state solution. And we get the Arab nations to, particularly from Egypt all the way to Saudi Arabia, to be in a position where they would cooperate in the transition so that they could keep the peace in Gaza without Israeli forces staying in Gaza. The question has been from the beginning, what's the day after in Gaza? And the day after in Gaza has to be, the end of the day after has to be no occupation by Israel on the Gaza Strip, as well as the ability for us to get in and out as rapidly as you can, all that's needed there. I've been disappointed that some of the things that I've put forward have not succeeded as well, like the port we attached from Cyprus.
Yeah, well, maybe if you were able to lead.
But that's why when I went to Israel immediately after the massacres that occurred at the hands of Hamas, the one thing I said to the Israelis, and I met with the War Cabinet and with Bibi, don't make the same mistake America made after bin Laden. There's no need to occupy anywhere. Go after the people who did the job. You may recall, I still get criticized for it, but I was totally opposed to the occupation and trying to unite Afghanistan. Once we got bin Laden, we should have moved on, because it was not in our, no one's ever going to unite that country. I've been over every inch of that, not every inch, the entirety from the poppy fields all the way to the north. I said, don't make the same mistake we made. Don't think that's what you should be doing, is doubling down. We'll help you find the bad guys, Sinwar and company. And all this criticism about I wouldn't provide when the weapons they needed. I'm not providing them 2,000-pound bombs. They cannot be used in Gaza or any populated area without causing great human tragedy and damage. But remember what happened when you had the attack on Israel with rockets and ballistic missiles. I was able to unite the Arab nations as well as Europe, and nothing happened. Nothing got hurt. It sent an incredible lesson to what was going on from the Middle East. So there's a lot of things, in retrospect, I wish I had been able to convince the Israelis to do. But the bottom line is we have a chance now. It's time to end this war. Doesn't mean walk away from going after Sinwar and Hamas. And if you notice, you know better than most, there is a growing dissatisfaction on the West Bank from the Palestinians about Hamas. Hamas is not popular now. And so there's a lot of moving parts. I just have to keep moving to make sure that we get as much done as we can toward a ceasefire, and get those. And by the way, look at the numbers in Israel. I mean, my numbers are better in Israel than they are here. But then again, they're better than a lot of other people here too. But anyway.
Bridge candidacy in 2020. You referred to yourself as being a bridge candidate for a younger, fresher generation of Democratic leaders. And
Here we go.
To know what changed.
What changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited in terms of the economy, our foreign policy, and domestic division. And I think, I won't put words in anybody's mouth. Most presidential historians give me credit for having accomplished more than most any president since Johnson and maybe before that to get major pieces of legislation passed. And what I realized was my long time in the Senate had equipped me to have the wisdom to know how to deal with the Congress to get things done. We got more major legislation passed that no one thought would happen. And I want to finish it, to get that finished. If tomorrow, if we had a circumstance where there was a lineup and I hadn't inherited what I did and we just moved things along, anyway, it's going to change.
Last question.
Haley Bull, Scripps. Or no, Josh Weingrove, I'm sorry, was the next one.
What a rug.
Questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of your colleagues, Democrats on the Hill, are watching tonight as they assess what they want to say about your candidacy. I'm wondering how you're thinking of this right now. It seems like your answer is clear, but they're watching how things go tonight, tomorrow in Michigan, next week in Texas and Nevada. Are you thinking that way about how the next week or two goes would inform your...
Am I using that way, you said?
Are you thinking that way about how the next 2 weeks go? Will that affect your decision, or are you fully determined on running in November as the party's nominee?
I'm determined on running, but I think it's important that I allay fears by let them see me out there. Let me see them out. For the longest time it was, Biden's not prepared to sit with us unscripted. Biden's not prepared to, anyway. And so what I'm doing is, and I've been doing, I think we've done over 20 major events from Wisconsin to North Carolina to demonstrate that I'm going out in the areas where we think we can win, where we can persuade people to move our way, or people are already there. And here, look, the other thing is, we have the most extensive campaign organization of anybody's had in a long, long time. We have well over 1,000 volunteers. knocking on doors, making phone calls, making tens of thousands of phone calls. We have headquarters. I forget exactly how many. I don't want to cite a number and then find out I'm off. But we have scores of headquarters in all the toss-up states. We're organized. We're moving, and that's awful hard to replace in the near term. And so, and here's the other thing. I was in the Senate a long time. Very proud of what I've done in the Senate. I was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee for a long time, and I was chairman or ranking member and chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I'm going to be going down to the Johnson Library. Anyway, I'm going to be going around making the case of the things that I think we have to finish and how we can't afford to lose what we've done or backslide on civil rights, civil liberties, women's rights. There's that little button we have. Control guns, not girls. I mean, the idea, we're sitting around, this is where Kamala's so good as well. We're sitting around, more children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death. The United States of America. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing? We got a candidate saying, promise the NRA, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything.
I think the teleprompter just turned on.
You got a Supreme Court that is what you might call the most conservative court in American history. This is ridiculous. There's so much we can do still, and I'm determined to get it done. It's about freedom. And by the way, I'll end this. Well, I'm not going to do that. Haley has to come up too. But I remember I made a speech on democracy in Philadelphia at Independence Hall. And I'm not being critical, just observing. The bulk of the press said, what the hell is he talking about that for? Democracy. You did. Democracy is not an issue. Democracy is not an issue. Except the polling data showed 60% of the people knew I was right, thought I was right. I'm not asking you a question. You don't have to answer, obviously. But do you think our democracy is under siege based on this court? Do you think democracy is under siege based on Project 2025? Do you think he means what he says when he says he's going to do away with the civil service, eliminate the Department of Education, make sure, we've never been here before. And that's the other reason why you say, hand off to another generation. I've got to finish this job. I've got to finish this job because there's so much at stake.
We've had some discussions over the past few days with your press secretary about the question of health exams. And you said you take a cognitive test every day in this job. Are you open to taking another physical or test before the election? Governor Whitmer of Michigan, for instance, said it wouldn't hurt to take a test.
Well, look, two things. One, I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist. In each case, as recently as February. And they say I'm in good shape, okay? Although I do have a little problem with my left foot because it's not as sensitive because I broke my foot and didn't wear the boot. But I'm good. I'm tested every single day about my neurological capacity to do decisions I make every day. You talk to my staff, all of you talk to my staff. Sometimes my staff talks a lot. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think you have them telling you that all the major ideas we've undertaken haven't been in part initiated by me. I remember when the staff and I said, I'm going to go to South Korea, we're going to get the chip. What are you doing? I'm going to get Japan and Korea back together again after essentially having hostilities toward one another since the end of World War II. I'm going to move and see that we can expand. The only thing age does is help you with it, creates a little bit of wisdom if you pay attention. And so the point I'm making is, I think it's important that if the neurologist tells me he thinks I need another exam, and by the way, I've laid every bit of the record out, hadn't hidden a thing. You ought to ask Trump for his, okay? I laid it all out. And every single day I'm surrounded by good docs. If they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think it's a problem, they think I should have a neurological exam again, I'll do it. But no one's suggesting that to me now. And I'll ask you another question. No matter what I did, no one's going to be satisfied. Did you have 7 docs? Did you have 2? Who'd you have? Did you do this? How many times did you? So I am not opposed if my doctors tell me I should have another neurological exam, I'll do it. But that's where I am. Haley Bull, Scripps.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said you're making decisions on a day-to-day basis when it comes to support for Ukraine. Does that mean you have not closed the door on further considering lifting restrictions for U.S.-made weapons inside Russia? And if I may, your convention is coming up where your delegates are pledged to make you the official nominee. If they have second thoughts, are they free to vote their conscience?
Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want, but I get overwhelming support. Overwhelming support. I won, I forget how many votes I won in the primary. Overwhelming. And so tomorrow, if all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says we want somebody else, that's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
Even if that means they vote for someone else?
Sure. Look, I'll end this with this. I served in the Senate a long time. I understand the impetus of candidates running for local office and whether they think the top if they can help them or not. In my state of Delaware, which was a very, at least it was a red state when I started, in terms of where you now talk red and blue. I don't recall most of the Democratic presidents winning my state when I was a candidate. The truth of the matter is I understand the self-interest of every candidate. If they think that, running with Biden at the top is going to hurt them, then they're going to run away. I get it. But so far, go and look at the polling data in their states. Look at the in-depth, and by the way, I think you'd all acknowledge, and you're all experts, I'm not being solicitous about the president, you're experts on this stuff. How accurate does anybody think the polls are these days? I can give you a series of polls where you have likely voters, me versus Trump, where I win all the time. When the unlikely voters vote, he wins sometimes. The bottom line is all the polling data right now, which I think is premature because the campaign really hasn't even started. I mean, it hadn't started in earnest yet. Most of the time, it doesn't start till after September, after Labor Day. So a lot can happen. But I think I'm the best I believe I'm the best qualified to govern. And I think I'm the best qualified to win. But there are other people who could beat Trump too. But it's awful start from scratch. And, we talk about, money raised. We're not doing bad. We got about $220 million in the bank. We're doing well. So with that, you have want to follow up on any of that you just asked me?
Yes. You earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Yes.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump, would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win. Me. No one's saying that. No poll says that.
Mr. President,
okay. Thank you.
This ends tonight's press conference. Thanks, everybody. This concludes.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's press conference. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Wow, that was President Joe Biden wrapping up.
That was a disaster. Okay. All right, let's do a summary. Oh my gosh, by the way, shout out to Lauren. She brought milk and cookies for that because I was falling asleep. So I needed a little sugar to pick me up. You know, coffee's going to be a problem to get to sleep later this late. I already had enough. All right, let's do a summary of all this. This is crazy. Ah, boy. All right, here we go. Well, welcome back. It is the eve of coupon expiration night, and we just had Joe Biden give a press conference. What was supposed to be, as ABC put it, a, quote, unscripted press conference after the NATO convention. And let's just make it clear, President Biden had both his teleprompters present for his opening speech, potentially even for parts of his answers. We don't know, since the teleprompters can be modified, live, basically. Somebody with a laptop can write things on there. We don't know. There were some points of the interview or the press conference where it almost felt like Joe Biden was going from the normal, and we helped fund Ukraine, to, look! And it's almost like the teleprompter turned on and he was able to all of a sudden read again. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to try to give a summary here as unbiased as possible, but I did have to take out a pillow. I did have to ask Lauren to bake some cookies, and she was able to, before the press conference ended, bake cookies and bring milk. So shout out to Lauren. Okay, but let's go through what was said here. So Biden clearly talks about the importance of NATO. He uses this to bag on Donald Trump, suggesting that Trump would encourage Putin to do whatever the hell he wants. And Donald Trump says that he wouldn't support other NATO members. The reality is Donald Trump has made it very clear that he would not support other NATO members who don't pay their bills. No pay, no stay, so to speak. It's obvious at this point he's reading from a teleprompter. Joe Biden comments on falling prices in the latest CPI report. He says we're going to keep working on corporate greed. Biden mentions how Donald Trump wants to implement a 10% tariff, which Biden argues would cause more inflation. Then later in his Q&A, he talks about implementing tariffs against China to help protect American manufacturers. So you had kind of a little bit of irony there, but also not uncommon. Joe Biden went into being determined to end the war in Gaza and continue supporting Ukraine. Okay, that was sort of like the prepared stuff. Then we got into questions, which Biden did make it clear that he had a list of questions, a list of pre-selected individuals. He wrote, quote, or he said rather, I've been given a list of people to call on. That's what he said. And at some point he kind of messed up like the order of the names in terms of who was supposed to go when he was reading off the list of who to call. So it was not an unscripted event at all. But the first question was about Kamala Harris. And Joe Biden talks about her by saying, look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Donald Trump to be my vice president if I didn't think they could beat Donald Trump. He obviously misspoke yet again, which is quite unfortunate because he just misspoke earlier, suggesting that Vladimir Putin was the president of Ukraine. This is not good. I'll play that clip here. We haven't played it yet on the channel other than earlier in the stream, and then we'll keep going with the summary here. This was that clip.
Now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. And now I want to hand it over to
Obviously, we know that he corrected himself, but again, when sort of your mental status and acuity is on test, these things don't look very good. In addition to the very first question, couldn't even get through the first question without messing up who your vice president is. Donald Trump has never been a vice president. It'd be one thing if maybe he was a vice president, but he's not. Anyway, second question. Leaders here at the NATO conference are concerned that you're affecting America's standing in the world because of his mental health. Joe Biden says, look, guys, the idea that anyone suggests we haven't had an incredibly successful conference. Look, folks, well, anyway. That's basically what I wrote down because he kind of just went in circles around hey, the conference has been successful. Find me somebody who says the conference hasn't been successful. The third question says this is a unique time in history because it's not your enemies who are calling on you to resign. It's your supporters. Have you thought about your legacy? Joe Biden says, well, look, I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. Find me an economist who disagrees with my performance. We're going to limit corporate rent increases to 5%. I don't know where the hell that came from. It kind of sounded like a nationwide rent control proposal. I hadn't heard that one before. But anyway, then he says, Kamala was one hell of a prosecutor. I wouldn't have picked her if I didn't think she was qualified to be president. That's why I picked her. Okay, so we get a little bit of a seed planting that he thinks that Kamala Harris is qualified to be president. Okay, Democratic Congressman Jim Himes or Himes, I don't know, Himes, says Biden should end his presidential campaign. Well, yeah, there are going to be more Democrats who come out on that too. It's like it'll be slowly at first and then faster and faster. Fourth question. What about reports that you need to go to bed earlier? It'd be smarter if I paced myself a little more, says Joe Biden. Instead of starting a fundraiser at 9, let's do 8. My schedule has been full bore. Where's Trump? Riding around on his golf cart, filling out his score before he even takes the first swing? I just gotta pace myself a little more. In the next debate, I won't be traveling to 15 time zones in the week before. Okay, well, first of all, you spent like 5 days at your home, waking up, or starting rather, at 11, with time for a nap in the 5 days leading up to the debate. Now, in the week before that, you may have been traveling across the world. But you did have a week to adjust. All right. And this idea about, like, slamming Trump with the whole riding around on the golf cart, filling out his score before he takes a swing. All right. It's a dig. I get it. Now, this one pissed me off. He says, look, I love my staff. They do great things. And I add things all the time, even from my wife. Okay, listen. I'm just going to be crystal clear here. You get the best price on those courses on building your wealth before tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. at meetkevin.com. Email us for bundle coupons at staff@meetkevin.com. Okay, I had to do that. No, but I want to be clear about this. I don't want a president who just wants to add things from time to time. It's almost like he just shows up and says, hey, yeah, that looks good. What if we do this? No, sir, we already have a plan for that. Okay, I'm gonna go nap now. That's not the president we need running the country. So this whole idea of I love my staff and I add things from time to time, come on. I think that was a little underrated, bad thing to say. But I think that'll come up more in time as people review these clips back. Fifth question, Ukraine. Basically said we're working on it. Part 2. How can you assure Americans no more bad nights? Biden's answer. Well, I'm getting the job done, right? Sixth question. Reporter says he just talked to Emmanuel Macron and others across Europe. Many are concerned Trump may win the election, that Trump may weaken NATO and Ukraine. You warn about it too. Do you think Europe will be left alone if Trump wins? Sounds like a very planted question, by the way. Biden, it would be a disaster if Trump wins. I think I'm the most qualified to do the job. I was able to get nations to support Ukraine. Seventh question. Are you trying to interrupt the partnership between Russia and China? And if you were in a room with Vladimir or Xi Jinping, there we go. Would you be able to negotiate with them? Okay. Well, we discussed the future of China in the NATO summit. China thinks they can entice any country to invest in China. Xi Jinping must understand there's a price to pay for undercutting the Pacific base in Europe as it relates to Russia and dealing with Ukraine. We'll have tariffs on China. What do we do to increase the capacity of Europe and Japan for them to produce their own weapon systems? I'm ready to deal with Xi Jinping and Putin now and 3 years from now. Look, like I said, I'm dealing with Xi right now, Xi Jinping. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now. If we allow Russia to succeed in Ukraine, they're not stopping. Not likely to change Russia right now. 8th question. Ceasefire in Gaza. Anything you wish you could have done differently? 2nd question. You referred to yourself as a bridge candidacy to a younger generation. What changed? Answer. Israel was occasionally less than cooperative. One of the most conservative war cabinets in history Israel has now. We encouraged a transition into a two-state solution. I'm disappointed some things have not exceeded the way we hoped. Maybe, then regarding the what changed, he says, what changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited. 9th question, 2 left. Many Democrats are evaluating your 2 weeks here. Or evaluating your next 2 weeks here. Will that affect your decision, or are you fully determined on running? Answer. I'm determined I'm running, but I think it's important I allay fears, but let them see me out there. Basically, he's trying to argue like, well, I'll just go do more events and I'll show people that I'm fine. But the problem is the more he talks, the more people are convinced he's not fine. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Will that affect your... Okay, yeah. Then he says, for the longest time, people have been saying Biden's not prepared to be unscripted. Anyway, I'm doing events to demonstrate, and we can't afford to backslide. Do you think democracy is under siege? I gotta finish the job. What about health exams? Are you opening to take a test? Well, look, I've taken 3 significant tests. They say I'm in good shape, except a little problem in my left foot. I'm tested every day. The only thing age does is create a little wisdom. If a neurologist tells me let's see, where's it? If a neurologist tells me they think I need another exam, well, by the way, I've laid out my entire record, blah, blah, blah. If they suggest I should have another exam, I'll do it. No one suggests that to me. So this is actually a big one. Because here, earlier, he suggests that he just goes around and adds like salt and pepper to what other people are doing. And now he's suggesting that no neurologist in the White House has asked for Biden to take another neurological exam. That his doctors think he's fine and he's around doctors all the time. 10th question. Can delegates vote for someone else? Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want. Tomorrow, if they say we want someone else, that's the democratic process. Would you support someone else? Sure. I believe I'm the best to beat Trump. There are others who can, too, beat Trump. Then, if your team showed you data that says Harris would fare better against Trump, would you consider that? Answer. No. Unless they said you won't win. Now, this is very interesting. So think about that sort of summary there for a moment. We got 4 big things out of there. 1, Kamala qualified to be president per Biden, right? Then we got Biden walks around and adds things, okay? Then we got I'll take another test if asked. I'll take a test if asked, but no one has asked. 4, we got VP Trump gaffe. And then 5, we got the data seed plant. Data seed plant on stepping aside. All right, this is a big one. So the data seed plant on stepping aside we've got to talk about. Because this is actually the front page of the New York Times, which obviously leans more left. More calls for President Biden to exit ahead of high-stakes appearance. Yes, but more importantly, Biden advisors weigh how to convince him to end his campaign. In multiple articles today, the New York Times, I'm just going to summarize it here, the New York Times is trying to put together polling to stack up Harris against Biden to show that Harris can actually beat Trump where Biden can't. They want to use this data to prove to Biden that he can't win. And Biden literally just said, right here, he said, no, unless they said you won't win. And that they showed him data that he would not win. Then he would step down. So we just got the data seed plant, I'll put it in little quotes here, the data seed plant on stepping aside if the data says he can't win. So those are some big takeaways, right? Kamala qualified to be president per Biden. Biden walks around and just adds things. He'll take a test if asked, but no one asked. We got a VP Trump gaffe, and we got the data seed plant on stepping aside if the data says he can't win, which is literally the same thing the New York Times has been talking about how to essentially convince Joe Biden to leave. So now, if we go to the predicted polls, they're a little volatile, but after this scripted, not scripted event, the odds are still in Kamala Harris's favor that she's going to win the nomination at 47-39. But they've tightened a little bit. If we go to the latest polls at Real Clear Politics, we see an ABC Washington Post poll that shows them tied. And if you do a Trump versus Harris, you actually have Harris in the lead by 2 points in the general election of Trump versus Harris. This is the kind of data that they're going to try to go to Biden with to convince him to leave. That's why Harris is starting to come up in polling. So keep an eye on this. You know, over here you got Trump versus Newsom. Trump wins. Trump versus Harris. Trump wins. Trump versus Biden. Trump wins. Trump versus Whitmer. Trump wins. Anyway, you gotta go to Real Clear Politics and see this. Emerson seems to be convinced that Trump wins most of these polls. So anyway, I don't think this event actually helped Joe. I think it made it clear that, again, he could read a teleprompter. When he doesn't read a teleprompter, he's kind of rambling. He's super low energy to listen to. And it's very difficult to believe that Joe Biden actually negotiates anything with any leader. It's totally believable that this country is just being run by other people in the White House, and Joe kind of just throws his experience, salt and pepper around. That's it. That's all we're getting here. So I think this sort of strengthens the likelihood that Joe Biden is going to step aside, especially since now we literally have Joe Biden suggesting that if there's data that says he can't win, he would step aside. He thinks Kamala is qualified to be president. And he'd, frankly, be able, he'd be willing to take another neurological exam if somebody asked him to. Well, trust me, people are asking. But we'll see. So anyway, that's the latest. That's your full summary on everything that happened. Go to meetkevin.com if you've got questions. If you want a job in accounting, bookkeeping, or you have a bar license for being an attorney, you want to work under one of our attorneys, even if you have no experience, or you have experience prop trading at a broker-dealer, especially if you have ETF experience, email us at jobs@meetkevin.com. Go to meetkevin.com to check out the courses on building your wealth. Make sure to do the following.
Subscribe to Meet Kevin.
And, of course,
don't sue me, bro.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye and good luck. Remember, any financial information is not personalized.